All right, ready to roll for the legs. No, for the legs, it's a little bit more complicated because we need to create, well, advanced foot rig basically. So everything has to be driven by IK, including the actual toes and the ankles and everything like that, because we want to be able to sort of manipulate the leg independently from the foot, and then have the toes and stuff be controlled as well. That's a bit tricky when you want to have, say, parts of the foot stick to the ground individually compared to other parts of the foot, like the ball of foot on the ground while you lift the heel. So everything has to be built in IK. So there's a bunch of ways we can do this, but we're going to go ahead and start off by just duplicating the hand control. Duplicate that and just move it aside. Because it's a duplicate, it's not going to affect the IK of our hand. There's no other relationships involved there. All we need to do now is unparent it. And the nice thing about the leg, at least, is that we don't need to worry about creating sort of offset groups for the hand. So that's really useful for us. All right. So what we need to do now is just go ahead and go to top view. And we're just going to realign the foot control to sort of be nicely aligned to the world. So we can do this in a bunch of ways, but I'm actually going to just edit it for now. I'm going to freeze the transforms. I'm going to bring this to the center of my world here. And then I'm going to go ahead and freeze the transforms and rotate this to be relatively straight, like so. And then I'm just going to go ahead and start to basically reset some of the curves. So to begin with, we're going to jump into object mode, and I might just quickly scale that a little bit thinner, like so. Apply the scale. Great. And I'm going to rename this. So let's go ahead and rename this object to control leg L1, or just control leg L. Great. All right. So now what we're going to do is go into side view. And in this case, we probably do need to have the geometry visible just to see how big a shape we need for this foot to be, visible and clickable. So I'm just going to scale it up and move that control back a little bit just to get an idea of the scale that we want, like that. That looks pretty good. And of course, it gives us an idea of where the pivot point needs to be too. So I'm just going to go ahead and change the pivot somewhat, just a little bit like that. And continue to scale it and fit it to match. So right now it's looking pretty good as it is there. I'm pretty happy with that control. So what I'm going to do is just go into my side view again and just sort of fit it in the same regard over here. And we need to do the same thing for the other side of our rig. Now, of course, this is looking pretty thick, as in like the width of that control is looking pretty thick. So I'm actually going to bring that in a little bit. So when we do go to animate, we won't cross over our selections. So just going to bring those in a little bit like so. Okay, cool. So how are we going to figure out how to mirror this in the exact same spot of the other foot? So that's pretty straightforward, actually, when you think about it. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to create a null or a locator, and I'm just going to match the transforms of this controller. So just go modify, match translation, and that gives us our translation value. So that is in X 11.38. I'm going to duplicate this shape and just make a temporary child of that locator. And then I'm going to move this negative 11.38. There we go. Perfect. So that's perfectly aligned, ready to roll. And now I can just unparent that control and delete the locator. And there we have it. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and freeze those transforms. Now, if I wanted to make sure that this was like exactly mirrored, I would just go ahead and, especially if you have an asymmetrical controller, just go ahead and scale on X -1. See how it's slightly different, and then just freeze all. There we go. All right, cool. So that's out the way. The main controller is ready to roll. So what we need to do now is create a set of IK handles for the feet. So basically, single chain IK handles that will allow us to manipulate the feet accordingly. So to do that, we're going to grab our IK tool here, and we're going to switch the current solver from rotate plane solver to single chain solver. And that will allow us to get the a single sort of directional IK working. So I'm going to go ahead and select my ankle joint, select my foot joint, and then we have our first solver. So if we go ahead and give it a go, you will see that now we can manipulate the foot with that IK. We're going to do the same thing here. We don't have to worry about preferred angles here because the single chain solver doesn't take into account rotation as much. Let's go ahead and do that once more. There we go. And just go down both feet here. One, two, one, two. All right, cool. Make sure you go ahead and name these now. So IK handle, in this case, will be foot underscore L. This one will be called toes underscore L. And just work your way through it all. And also make sure to label your controls appropriately. So this one's going to be IK, control IK leg L, control IK leg R, of course. All right, save that. All right, the next thing to do is to create some extra controls to control all of these different elements. So ultimately, what we will need to do is be able to control different angles of the feet appropriately. So we want to be able to rotate from different parts of the feet. So either from the ankle, from the heel, from the ball of the foot, and from the toes. So we need to build up a control scheme that works for us. Now, there are a bunch of ways you can do this, and on the internet, there's about 1,000 different ways you can do this. One is using channel box inputs to sort of manipulate the bones with locators. Another one is to just create straight up controllers, which is what we're going to do. And then there's a combination of both if you want to do both. Now, I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible. That's why we're just going to work with straight up controls. So we just have to build up a really clean hierarchy for this to all work out. So to start off with, we need to build up some actual labels for this thing. So, to designate what each part does. So, we want to be able to rotate from the toes. We want to be able to rotate the toes up and down. But then we also want to be able to swivel the foot, not just from the heel, but we want to be able to swivel the foot from the center as well. So, we want to be able to laterally, at least from the center point, swivel the heel or swivel the foot from the ball of the foot, not just the ankle. And of course, we want to be able to control the ankle or the ball of foot rising and falling. So we're going to create a very simple control for this one. Again, going into the center of our world, I'm going to create a curve with the EP curve tool. And I'm going to create a curve that looks somewhat like a little arrow that does this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Something like this will be really good, I think. Let's go to our properties, make sure everything's frozen out. It is. So now what I'm going to do is grab this controller, grab the bone, and match at least the location. So go to modify, match translations or match transforms, and match translation. All right, next thing we're going to do is rotate this in Z so we know exactly which way we want this thing to rotate. So this is going to be in Z, so 90 degrees in negative 90 degrees. So that's exactly how I want this thing to be represented. That looks great. I'm going to freeze those transforms. Oh, actually, I'll leave it as is for now. I'm going to duplicate this now and snap it to the other controller over here. Great. We need to do the same thing at the ball of the foot. So that's going to be what essentially is going to be our ankle control. So duplicate that, snap it to the point, holding down B to snap, like so. And you can always scale these up a little bit as well. So we're just going to scale those up. And that will be our control for the ankle. All right, great. Save that. Next thing we're going to do is work out our swivel. So our swivel control, again, we're going to duplicate this again. And we're going to, let's just freeze these transforms for now. And we're going to rotate on Z. Let's rotate on Z in negative. So negative 90 degrees. At least then we know exactly what this control is going to do. It's going to swivel the ball of the foot. There we go, something like that. Grab this one. And we're going to, let's see, let's make sure we haven't duplicated it already. We haven't. Duplicate that. Freeze transforms. Actually, we can actually, instead of doing that, let's delete this. Let's copy this one because we've already got everything lined up. So duplicate, snap, and then scale negative. So I'm going to make sure this is scaled. Freeze all. Scale in X minus 1. That way the controllers are turning in the right direction. All right, cool. I think that's everything we need for now. Oh yeah, we need one last controller, and that is for the toes themselves, so we can lift the toes independently from the feet. So for this one, we just need another custom controller. So let's go ahead and do that. And this one's a lot simpler. It's just going to be a circle that we scale up, jump into edit mode, and let's just scale that flat like that. Perfect. Um, Again, bringing the pivot to around where we can estimate where the toe will rotate from. So something like that is fine. Great. Grab that control, apply the scale, and then go to the ball of the foot again and match those transforms, match the translation. And we want to just rotate this accordingly. So we're going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees and scale it up to fit. So something like that will be fine. Yep. Apply those scales. And then we're going to duplicate that one more and snap it to the other foot, like so. And there's our pretty robust foot setup. So now we just have to figure out the hierarchies for all these different controllers. Now, you may be surprised that certain controllers will go first over the others, but overall, it's pretty simple. We're going to have a master control for our foot, followed by the swivel control of our foot, followed by the toe control, followed by, oh, that's the toe tip control, followed by our ankle and our toe control as a child of the tippy toes. All right. So before we do that, let's go ahead and name these accordingly. So this one will be control leg, control leg. You can even say control foot if you want to. This one will be control IK toe tip dot L. This one will be control. You can actually say control IK foot, honestly, but I would say control Yeah, heel. Heel would probably be the best way of putting it. This one here will be control. Okay, foot swivel. Then we have our toe control. So control, okay, toes. All right, so let's work out the hierarchies here. So all make sure that all of these have as well been frozen out before we do anything. So select all those controls, freeze, all. Same thing on the master controls here. Make sure they're all good. They are. Great. So let's start working out all our different hierarchies. Okay, so to start off with, leg, L, and R. Grab the foot swivel, make it a child of their respective sides. All right, let's open that up. Next thing on the list is our toe tip. So toe tip will become a child of the foot swivel. All right, like so. Next thing will be the heel and the toes. So the heel and toes actually sit on the same level of hierarchy. So grab the heels and the toes and make them a child of the toe tips. All right, just like that. Great. So let's have a little test and see how the logic works. So we have our controller like so, controlling all the different controllers. We then have our swivel control, which allows us to swivel the foot like so. We then have the toe tip control, which will control the heel and the toes. And then finally, we have a heel control, a toe control that will manipulate the toe tips, and then a heel control that will allow us to lift and rise and drop the foot. That's basically the logic that's going on here. Now the question is, where do we put these IK handles in terms of constraints? Where do we actually constrain these different controls accordingly? Okay, so the answer is actually quite simple. Um, we need to constrain the. Let's remember as well, we have an IK handle for the feet as well. All right, so we need to make sure that those are named accordingly. So just go ahead and name these as is. Control IK handle leg L, and of course, name this one leg R. So we have our leg IKs, then we have our foot IKs, and then we have our toe IKs. So basically, we need to make sure that they're being manipulated from the very base of our hierarchy. So when you think about it, we need to make sure that when our controls are driving the IK, that any subsequent child control is going to be also influencing the hierarchy of our IK. So basically, we are left with the heel and toes to manipulate our IK handles. So what we're going to do is grab the heel control. All right. So the heel control of these ones here and constrain the leg handle to that. So go ahead and constrain. And in this case, we're going to go with a parent constraint with offsets turned on, push apply. Do the same thing on this side, apply. And we're also going to control the heel IK from there as well. So grab that control again, grab the IK handle, in this case, the foot IK, L, apply, grab this one, foot IK, apply. And then finally, with the toes, which are these controls here, we want to grab the toes and constrain with an IK like so. Apply. So now let's give it a go. So our heel is going to be manipulating the toe. See that? There it goes. The, the toes are going to manipulate the toes. All right, so there we go. It's all working to plan. Great. So now, if we test it out completely, we can see how the hierarchy is going to influence the IK, because technically now these IKs are inverted commas or quotation marks or whatever you want to call it, children of those very bottom controls. So now these controls will effectively control the IK. So there we go. We got our foot control. We've got a swivel control, and you can still technically move it all around as well. We've got swivel control from that point of pivot, so you can still swivel around. We have toe control, which allows us to manipulate with the toes like that from any angle at the tip. And then we have the individual heel and toe controls. So we test it on both sides here, working like a treat. All right. We can worry about hiding and locking away certain features for now, but uh, but the time being, this is working perfectly. It's exactly how we want it to work, and it's a pretty robust system, all things considered. And no set-driven keys, no attribute editor, no bullshit like that required. Um, a really simple rig for a really simple purpose. So it's functional, it's quick, it's lightweight, and it works. So that's all that matters at this point. The only thing left to do now is to fix up our pole vectors, which again, really simple to do. I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate one of these controllers here in our ARM IK, match the transforms and match the translation of that control over here. Let's rename that as IK pole leg. Duplicate that. Rename that. And then push them forward. And again, you can be pretty average about this where you want to put it. So firstly, though, let's go ahead and freeze those. Move them forward like so. There we go. Let's go 45. All right, cool. And then we're going to create a pole IK. So let's go ahead and grab that. Grab the handle for the leg. So that's up here. We're going to constrain pole vector. There we go. And now we have complete knee control. All right. This one over here. Again, we can grab this one. Pole IK handle, constrain pole vector. And now that one's working as well. Now, if you prefer, and this is what I prefer to do, I would go ahead and make these children of our foot control. So I'm just going to make them a child of that. Just P on the keyboard. P on the keyboard. That means that if I go ahead and control the foot, as you see here, oops, sorry. If I go ahead and control the foot, as you see here, I can then also control essentially the twist of the knee if I have to, and then if I have to after that, um, sort of manipulate the knee independently, I can still do that. Now it's completely up to you, of course, if you wanted to go down that route, because ultimately you can also make that a child of the global control in the future. So we'll worry about that in later on. Whatever you prefer, really. As long as everything's frozen out now, we are done with the leg rig. So that is complete. So just like the IK or the FK, sorry, we need to start to group all this stuff together. So let's go ahead and just select all our constraints, all our IK constraints there, at least for our arm and our legs. And we're going to group those together and say IK constraints. There we go. Not going to affect the hierarchy at all of our stuff, but that's where we want to put them for now. And then we're going to grab our control IK leg, control IK arms, grab the control groups there, grab the bones, and I'm going to group all of those together under a group called IK control group. Great. Okay, so the next thing to do is just bring back everything that we can see here. Let's see what we got here. We have FK, we got IK. That's all working great. I still got all these visualizations turned on, so let's just turn off those. Don't want to see them.